morning. My name is Geraint James. I am one of the 4 engagement managers on the Digital Voice program. I look after the wonderful Wales, the Southwest, the Northeast, and Northern Ireland. So quite a wide spread there, but very much enjoy my job, going out there helping different communities and busting a few myths on digital voice. Today I've got a few slides to take you through, which will help obviously to, as I say, bust some of those myths. And then what we'll do is we'll have a bit of a Q&A session at the end to cover off anything that's been missed. There's been quite a few new announcements recently as well, which aren't in these slides, but I'll try and drop those bits of information in at the right time. So you should be able to see my slides right now. And what I'll do is I'll kick off. So the reason why we're all here, and you should hopefully have all heard the big headline, is that the UK's landline telephone network is being decommissioned or retired. Reason being, it's quite old, to be honest. Some parts of the network are up to 100 years old, but the technology itself has been around for about 40 years. They don't really make parts anymore for it. It's getting very difficult to source the parts that are available. The engineers who are well skilled and well versed in fixing this are retiring as well. It's extremely power hungry, bad for the environment, and to be honest, it's not great for the country that we live in either. Simply put, because it expands in the heat, contracts in the cold, doesn't like wet weather, doesn't like cold weather. Basically, all the weather that we get, the copper network doesn't like. Obviously, back in the day, it probably was limited in the amounts of technology options that we had. But I tell you what, if we would have had foresight, we wouldn't have put that in. Excuse me. But anyway, moving forward, this is going to be a once-in-a-generation upgrade. As I say, it's the biggest change we've gone through for a very long time. The new network is definitely going to be more resilient. It's going to be more sustainable and energy efficient. On that front, I think the old or the current network, diesel generators kick in the event of a power cut. Those kind of things will all be gone. Obviously, the old network is made of metal, of copper. The newest network, which obviously coincides with the expansion of full fiber, is made of glass. So it's a lot more energy efficient, a lot more environmentally friendly as well. And the new technology will really set us up for a long time to come. Now, contrary to belief, to what you'll hear from certain radio shows or from certain news outlets, the landline isn't going away. It's not the end of the landline. What's happening is it's just changing slightly. We're digitizing it and how it's going to be delivered to you moving forward. So for the overwhelming majority of customers, it's a simple 3-step solution. You unplug your telephone from the wall, you plug it into the back of your router, and you have a working telephone service. That's if you have broadband, of course. BT's new service is going to be called Digital Voice. Now, other providers will have a different name for the service, but as I say, BT's going to be calling it Digital Voice. 1 or 2 other providers have adopted that name as well, so it may become the common name, it may not, but digital phone lines is what you'll generally hear it referred to as. Now, there's many benefits, and these are probably some of the headline questions that you'll get as you move forward. So first up, you get to keep the same telephone number, so it minimizes the impact on the customer. So there's no change. Some people have had obviously the same telephone number for maybe 30, 40 years or so on. So that number will stay the same. There's no need to change. The move to digital voice is for exactly the same price. So there's no impact on your monthly bill, no impact on the length of your contract and so on. All of that stays the same. 99% of phones will work on the digital voice platform. So in the rare occasion, where you've got a phone that doesn't work, it really is rare. I can't stress that enough. The majority of them will work. Actually, the most common reason why your phone won't work is that your phone's been hardwired into the socket, so you can't unplug it. Though that does happen. Some people have done that, or taken that move over the years. However, as I say, overwhelming majority of people won't need to unplug that, won't need to change their phones at all. One of the probably the best features of the new network is the enhanced scam protect feature. Now, the people who generally rely on the landline more than others are the older generation, and they are also as it goes, more susceptible to scam and fraud. We've probably all had phone calls from people pretending to be from Amazon or pretend to be from your bank or many other different places, even BT. However, what this has got built in is an AI, so artificial intelligence kind of system built in by a company called Hire, and it spots the call before it even rings at your house and puts it straight into a bin. So you don't even get the phone call coming through to you, which is a real improvement in what we've seen. So when you move across onto digital voice, you'll see a marked reduction in the amount of telephone calls that you get. If you're lucky enough to have a little screen on your telephone as well, when phone calls come through to you, and we believe that they are just a nuisance call, so telemarketing calls, it will highlight that it's a nuisance call as well to you, so you can choose whether to answer it or not. So it's got a kind of two-layered, one for scams, one for nuisance, and of course, just general kind of everyday use as well. We've seen since this initial kind of launch, we've seen something like 20,000 calls being blocked every day, which were previously scam calls, putting customers at risk. So it's a great improvement on the service that we were able to offer customers. And the last two, then we've got crystal clear call quality. So because it's a digital phone network, it's very much the same as what we're using now. So MS Teams, Zoom, there's Google Meet Me. There's a few other ones out there who basically use what we call voice over internet protocol, which is essentially phone calls over the internet. Digital voice is exactly the same thing. And when you're on an end-to-end digital phone call, the quality is infinitely higher than what you will have had previously on copper. As you can see here, it's as if we're in the same room talking to each other. Great quality all round. And then finally, sorry about that. Finally, is the three-way calling. So you have three different people, all in different homes, all on the same phone call at the same time, which is a lovely touch, helping people stay in touch. You can also have multiple phone calls at the same time. So, for example, if Mark and I lived in the same house, Mark could be calling out, speaking to one of his friends. I could be calling out, speaking to one of my friends, and that can all go on all at the same time, which is a lovely little thing for if you've got big families all living under one roof. Now, big questions, of course, is how will the switchover happen? It's widely known that we tried to launch this previously. Digital voice has actually been around for about 6 or 7 years. And our previous approach was kind of just write you a letter telling you were switching, and that was it. And it probably wasn't the warmest way of doing it. And it kind of got quite a lot of backlash. People were very, very worried, rightly so. And they probably couldn't voice their concerns openly either. So we took the decision to pause, to take stock, to think about probably what was a better way for us to actually run the product, give people the help and support that they needed. So in relaunching, what we did was we invited a range of charities to come on in and work with us on the rollout of the Digital Voice program. So we created what we call the Digital Voice Advisory Group, or the DVAG for short. Now, we meet with a DVAG every 6 to 8 weeks. I think there's actually a meeting this Thursday as it goes. And what we do is we present to them how the program's going, any changes we wish to make. They sign off on the changes before we can actually run them. If they don't sign off on the changes, we don't run the changes, we don't run the program. That simple. You can see some of the charities that we work with here, but this isn't an exhaustive list, and it's an ever actually increasing group that we work with. But so they make lots of different changes, and they make lots of suggestions on the way we work. Some of them, for example, is we don't do any of these migrations via email because not everybody can access email. Some people are digitally excluded. So all of this is done via mail. They've looked at the language that we use to make it as user-friendly as possible, lots of pictures, all that kind of stuff. The other thing that's come out is they were very keen to highlight 5 customer segments who are more reliant on the landline than your average Joe, if you like. And the next slide I'm going to go through now is probably the most important slide. So if your attention wanes like mine does, try and focus back in on the next slide because this is the big one. So those 5 customer groups, as I say, which are probably the most the ones we need to probably focus on a little bit more as our Digital Voice Advisory Group have advised. I'll go through them one by one. So first of all, we've got no mobile phone signal. As you're probably well aware, some of our most rural customers can really struggle for a mobile phone signal. I struggle myself where I live, down here on the border between Swansea and Carmarthenshire in South Wales. You've then got vulnerable customers with additional needs. I think that one kind of speaks for itself. If customers have disclosed additional needs to us, we know about them. We need to take extra care and attention when we migrate them across. We then got customers with healthcare pendants or alarms. Just to give you a little bit of extra insight into this, these are those healthcare alarms which you wear around your neck or around your wrist. If you take a tumble, you press the alarm, that notifies an alarm receiving centre, who are then able to give you assistance over the phone or arrange for an ambulance to come out and assist you at home. We don't know if those alarms are plugged into our system or not, so we are working with all of the local authorities and the private providers of those around the UK to ensure that we know who these customers are. Elderly customers, the industry is classing these as 75 plus. So if you're 75 or over, we're classing you as elderly and looking to give you extra care support as we migrate you across. And then landline only customers. So that's customers without broadband. So they can't just unplug their phone and plug it into the back of the router because they haven't got a router to plug it into. So these 5 customer segments, we are basically, we're not migrating them onto digital voice just yet. That simple. We're not migrating them onto digital voice just yet. We understand they're going to need some extra care and support to move them across. And that's what we're working on bit by bit. And the plan is to start these migrations later down the line when we've got additional support. So to give you some extra insight into that, first of all, let's go healthcare pendants first of all. Mark's already helped me with Swindon. He's put me in contact with some of the providers there. We're busy working on getting what we call a data sharing agreement in place. And once we've got the data sharing agreement in place, they can let me know who all of the telecare customers are in the area. That coincided with all the private providers giving me that information. I can ring fence those customers, know exactly who the healthcare pendant customers are, and we cannot move them across. Reason why we don't want to move them across is question on functionality, whether it works with the digital one or not. Not all providers are ready for the switch who provide the healthcare pendants, so we prefer not to move anybody just to be safe until they've all fully tested and they're fully happy that their products will work, and that's when we'll make the switch. So we're just delaying those for now. Other customers, for example, landline only customers. We recently, and I say recently, it was in the last month or two, we released a new landline only product, which we will be making available from October this year. The landline only product, it's going to be called a dedicated landline service. It is a digital product, as I say, out from October this year. Quite simply, let's say Mark is a landline only customer. We would write out to Mark and we'd say, Mark, on October the 1st, we're going to switch you on to a digital landline. For 1 hour on the 1st of October, you'll be without a landline service. We don't know which hour in that day it's going to be, but it's going to be on the 1st. And when we switch you over, we do the switch our end in the exchange. And it'll be a 1 hour switch. It'll take less time than that for you to be able to make phone calls out. It'll just be a bit of a delay on being able to receive phone calls. But within an hour, all of that work will be done, and we'll notify you after the work is complete. And you'll then have a digital landline service, which will work up until 2030. So it's kind of like a sticky plaster solution, but we'll get you onto the digital platform and enable you to have a working service. So that's another example of kind of a new product that we've got out there. Elderly customers over 75, bit of a contentious one, this one. Because it's when we do run events and we speak to some elderly customers, a lot of them are quite happy to make the switch right here, right now, because they feel ready, they feel competent, and they want to do it. Reason they're on this category is that's the advice we've been given straight away by by the charities that we work with. That they believe that they're going to need some extra help, care, and support. So that's what we do. But again, a lot of those elderly customers will probably fall into some of these other categories, and as I said, we'll manage those migrations across as and when we need to. I suppose the big thing that's about, that covers probably all of these kind of categories is when we talk about extra care and support, we talk about managed installs. So our engineers going out to the customer, installing the new product for them and testing it for them. So that takes away all of the kind of any difficulties, any physical abilities to be able to do it, any understanding of what it takes to get digital. We'll be able to manage all of that process for them. The other thing that we're going to be doing as well is to providing what we call a battery backup solution for the customers in the event of a power cut. So that kind of brings up the question, what happens in the event of a power cut then? So currently on the copper network, the network that we've got in place, if there is a power cut, those diesel generators that I mentioned right at the start, they kick in, provide power down the network, and there you go. You've got a working telephone which works. Because you're going to be unplugging your telephone and plugging it into your router is powered from your house. As such, if there's a power cut, there is no power in your telephone line and your telephone doesn't work on digital voice. Now, for most people, this isn't a concern. They've got one of these, mobile phone, job done. They just pick up the telephone, they start using that. It's not an issue. However, that's not the case for everybody. Now, the Ofcom ruling on this one is that we need to provide our most vulnerable customers with a battery backup solution, which lasts for 1 hour, and they're able to ring 999 off that emergency services. So that's the Ofcom ruling. Products we've got are better than that ruling, quite simply. So I'll talk you through them both. First of all, you've got the battery backup unit, or the BBU as we call it. Now, this one is ideal for people who live in an area without a mobile phone signal. Quite simply, your router plugs into that plugs into your telephone, into your power line. So if the power goes out, that kicks in and gives you router power. It'll last up to 4 hours, giving you an hour talk time as well, and you can ring anyone you like, not just 999. So if it's a case of, I've got a power cut, I can ring my brother, ring my sister, tell them, there you go, I'm out of power. You know, this is how you're going to get hold of me, etc., etc. And put provisions in place. So that one goes well over and above the 1 hour, and you can ring anyone you like. So well over and above the Ofcom regulations. And that's ideal for people who live in an area without mobile phone signal. Now, if you live in an area with mobile phone signal, we would recommend the hybrid phone, which is the phone there you can see on screen. Now, the hybrid phone is a very clever piece of kit because when the power goes out, that switches onto the mobile phone network and works straight across mobile phone. It's got a built-in SIM card with preloaded minutes, and the battery in that one will last up to 7 hours. And again, you can ring anyone you like. So it's a very, very flexible piece of kit. The SIM card that's inside there, obviously, so when your phone line goes down, your normal landline number won't work, but you've got a preloaded SIM card with a mobile phone number built in. So what we recommend to customers is as soon as you get one, make a test call, get what that mobile phone number is, and share it with your nearest and dearest, so they can contact you in the event of a power cut, etc., etc. Save it as mum's backup phone or something like that in the event of a power cut. But that's what we recommend for people with if they live in a mobile phone area. It's a very, very clever piece of kit and it's great. You can purchase these if you don't fall into a vulnerable category. You can purchase these from the EE store. The battery backup is £85. The hybrid phone is £80, give or take a penny. But those are available for free to our most vulnerable customers. Then the next question: how we'll reach our customers. We understand, obviously, in the first kind of rollout that we did, which we paused, that we didn't really give the customers the opportunity to ask questions, get reassurance, voice concerns, etc., etc., etc. All that changes now. What we did, we split the UK into 12 separate regions. As a result, I spent a lot of time on the road, out speaking to customers directly face to face. As you can see here, this is the map we kicked off back in the East Midlands, and I think it was July when we kicked that off. We've been through the Yorkshire and Humber, Northern Ireland, I think was September. London was around November time, I think it was. And then, we've gone through the West Mids, Southeast Wales was back in April, and we plan to be in the Southwest in September. Nice and simple. Whole month down there, helping you guys through this process. Now, the question, of course, is what you can expect to see when we get there. So when we're there, we'll run a series of events, and I'll talk you through these step by step. So the bottom picture here, these are what we call a roadshow event. So a roadshow or a town hall, we tend to run 2 of these in a region. They're very big events. We'll invite 10 to 15,000 people into one of these events. You'll have the opportunity to speak to potentially me, one of my 3 colleagues, or one of the many, many volunteers that we get to come on in and speak to customers. It's get your hands on the equipment, one-to-one conversations, ask the questions. You know, what happens to my phone here? What happens to my phone upstairs? What happens in a power cut? All of this kind of stuff. Ask those questions. As an aside, when customers leave, we run an exit survey, fully anonymous exit survey, asking them about the confidence levels that they have and the knowledge levels that they have. Customers are currently rating us at about 8.5 out of 10. Customers come in very, very scared, very worried, leave feeling very, very confident and very happy with the help and support that they've received. So these events really do work and they make a big difference. As I say, we run 2 of these big events. The middle pictures you can see on this slide here, these are actually from live events that we did in Salisbury. Those ones are the first events that we did. And the picture on the left in the middle, Sodi, he's one of my colleagues, and he will be running an event in Swindon. There you go. All right. Top left picture. This is what we call a pop-up, and this is the type of event we're going to be running in Swindon itself. It's going to be in a library in Swindon. We'll probably invite somewhere about 800 customers, something like that. We'll invite into the session. They can come on in, get their hands on the equipment. As you can see, it's all there on the desk. Sit down, speak to an expert, get the help and support that you need and the guidance that you need. And then finally, top right, we've got our digital voice engagement vehicles. We've got 2 of these, and these do about 25 different stops in a region throughout the course of a month. We've got a dedicated team who sit on those, travel the country, helping people with obviously with all of their questions. Same thing, hands on the equipment, help support, ask your questions, get the support and guidance that you need. We do a lot of this stuff, and we've been doing it now for over a year. We'll continue to do it for the next couple of years as well, getting out there speaking face-to-face, giving people the help that they need. Now, what I'll finish with is this one, quite simply. I'm one guy. I do 4 regions, and they're big regions as well: Southwest Wales, Northwest, and Northern Ireland. There's a couple of countries in there as well, so it's a mammoth task to undertake. But thankfully, on my journeys around, I meet very helpful people like Mark, who puts me in touch with people. He gives me big audiences like this to speak to kind of spread the word, and it's more of that is what I need. Once I've written all of my invites up for these events, I'll be sharing them. And all I ask is that for you to share those as widely as you possibly can. Share the word of Digital Voice as widely as you can. Let people know all about it. If you can put me in touch with any other groups, any of the people who need help and support, if you want me to come on the telephone and talk to your group, I'm more than happy to do it. It's what I do all day, every day, and the occasional evening too. If you need me to come to you, I can come to you. You're probably about 3 hours down the M4, but it can be done. You know what I mean? So these things can happen, and that's what we need. When we're in your region, you'll see a marked increase in advertising. It'll be on nearly every radio station. It'll be in every newspaper. You'll find it hard to get away from it. They'll be talking about it all the time. So it'll naturally drive conversation around it. But I want to get ahead of that conversation and speak to the groups that matter beforehand. So if you're with a group, like Leslie, for example, then let's talk. Let's see how I can help. Let's see what information I can give you with beforehand. If I need to speak to your group, I'll speak to your group and help give people the confidence. Because as I stop sharing now, there are many news outlets out there, newspapers, TV shows, radio shows, who will tell you all of the negatives and they maybe not give you all of the full pictures. It's not as bad as you think it is. I've been on Digital Voice for about 7 years. Never let me down. It's a fantastic service. And we've got many, many happy customers who've moved across onto it. And it's really not that much to worry about. We're confident in the product, and we'd like you to be as equally confident as we can as well. So I'll stop there and give, I'm sure, you all the opportunity to ask many questions. So I'm sure you have.
Thank you. That's really, really helpful. And again, there are bits that I picked up there that I don't think were on the previous presentation, particularly about the battery pack and the hybrid phone, which looks really interesting. So thank you for sharing that. We have one question in the chat so far.
Question as well. Sorry, I'm going to ask a question.
You need to put it in the chat.
Hello.
No.
Also, yeah. Please ask the question.
I'm sorry, I didn't realise, but I'd taken the microphone.
Right, Jane.
I'm just wondering, regarding if this new digital system gets hacked for any length of time, that could be very hazardous, couldn't it? We're not looking at a power cut for 1 hour. It could be days, couldn't it? I'm looking at sort of malicious hackers from different countries, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a bit different to that, to be honest. It's not really a computer system; it's just cables under the ground. So it's not really a hackable system, to my knowledge. My basic understanding of how it works, to be honest, is just more infrastructure. If you wanted to impact the system, the way to impact the system would be to pair scissors, cut the cable. That's the way to impact this system. It's not really a hackable computer infrastructure because it's all just cables connected everywhere. So it's more of a take scissors and snip, snip, snip. That's the way people generally tend to try to sabotage a broadband infrastructure rather than a hack. So I know the word digital, you generally tend to think computers, that's the way, and it's more physical damage is the way, but you can physically damage the existing copper network in exactly the same way. That does happen from time to time. You know, somebody driving down the road takes out a telegraph mast. That's right, yeah. Get my words right, sorry. That does happen from time to time, and it takes time to fix. Well, luckily, on a digital platform, if you're in an area with full fiber, so much quicker to fix. So many more parts, and it can get done in no time. Because with full fiber, especially as well, because in copper, for example, in the old words, you had to relay everything, start to finish, all the way through. With full fiber, you can just get two pieces of glass and you can fuse them together. Just two broken pieces, psst, bang, together, job done. So even if one broke here, one broke there, you just stick a piece in the middle, fuse them together, and it's now one whole piece again. So it's much easier to fix, much better. So the physical damage is really the concern rather than a computerized kind of piece. And physically wise, much better.
And I guess, I guess that not so many people are going to want to steal the.
No, this glass. There's glass everywhere. No one's after stealing the fiber. People do steal copper. Yes, 100%. It's worth a fortune. And definitely there will be a copper recovery piece. I can see somebody put their cables overhead. Yes, there's fiber overhead as well. But again, nobody's really interested in stealing the fiber. It's all about the copper in that aspect. So yeah, it's far more secure, reliable, and everything all the way around. So some of these silly annoyances that you get take a long time to fix. Really not so much of an issue when you get onto a full fiber-based network. Digital, it's much better.
Fantastic, thank you. Karen asks, how do you decide whether someone has a mobile signal? As in some areas, you might get connected to one network, but not another. Yes.
Right. So I'll be straight up and honest. I haven't got a solid answer on this one, but what I do know is that we use Ofcom records. That's what we're looking at to use the. I think you would call it. You'd look at mapping of who's got networks and who hasn't. Now to use this, sorry, really loud plane going overhead. Right, there you go. My house shakes. I'm in the flight path of like 747s for the army. So anyway, right, go back to what I was thinking. Right, in an emergency, and if any of you are on an EE network, you can test this out yourselves. Right, you can ring 555, and it will test your ability to ring 999. Right, so you ring 555, bang, listen, and they'll say, congratulations, your test to ring the emergency services has been successful. It's a test call, right? So in an emergency, all of the big providers are signed up to this service where you use each other's masts, first available mast. So if you're on EE and the first available mast is Vodafone, if it's an emergency, bang, you can connect to a Vodafone. So in the scenario which you've outlined there, if you're a Vodafone customer, but your hours, we think you haven't got service. If you've got Vodafone anyway, you can still make an emergency service call in the event of a power cut, which is what the Ofcom ruling is. If you can understand me, it's a bit difficult to explain, but it's all about that. I think they call it rural shared services network, I think is what they call it. I think, don't quote me on it, but it's all about sharing masts in the event of emergency. And the Ofcom ruling is all about being able to speak to emergency services networks in that time. So no matter who you're with, if there is a mast nearby, you'll be able to make a call of somebody's mast, regardless of who's with and who you're with. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a difficult one to explain.
Fantastic. Thankfully, in Swindon, we're not too bad, but certainly in some of the rural areas, Near
further
Swindon.
out. Yeah. And it's one of these things. As long as one of the providers have got a signal, you'll be okay. Because in the event of an emergency, power goes down, you'll be able to connect to one of the other masts to make the emergency phone call. And that's the thing. So if you're an EE customer, you've got no signal, but a Vodafone person right next to you's got a signal, make a phone call, you'll connect to the Vodafone mast. So you can test that through ringing 555 off your mobile if you're an EE customer, and it'll show you what that service looks like.
Fantastic. You kind of highlight a question from me, really, almost rhetorical, but you mentioned earlier about how we can get involved in terms of supporting you. So we have members from Swindon Borough Council here in a variety of roles, but we also have people from the local community, people from parish councils, people from community groups, people from churches and faith groups. What would be your request if you were to kind of speak to them now?
I will shortly. I think my aim is to do it tomorrow, is to write out all of these wonderful invites that I've got. I'll tell you exactly where I've booked it for now. Let me just jump forward in my calendar, September, that day. So I have booked Central Library Swindon on the 11th, right, of September, 10 till 2. That's when the pop-up is, right? That's when Sody Dillon's going to be there on that day. I will be writing an official invite. And Mark, I'll send it through to you, and I'll send you lots of other information. Ideal scenario for me is spread the word. Get it out there. Get on your Facebook pages. I don't know, what other social media groups that you have. If you've got newsletters, add it in the newsletters, right? Say, we're going to be here at this date at this time. I've got YouTube videos that I can share with you, which are really great. They're simple, only 2.5 minutes long. And it'll say, right, this is how you connect. This is what it is. This is what this does. This is what that does. Really simple. I've got one pages, which just explains what Digital Device is. I've got independent one from Tech UK. Because if some people don't like BT, that's fine. If some people aren't with BT, that's fine. They can read the Tech UK stuff. So it makes it a little bit more friendly and inclusive for everyone. So for me, it's all about just spread the word. This is happening. We're going to be there. If you want to come and see us, come and see us. And there are another couple of events in your neck of the woods, which I will open up the map and I'll show you where we're planning to go, because I think that's also useful. Can't pull that up. Right. All eyes on the screen. And right, so hopefully you'll be able to see that now. You see that might be a bit small. But what you got here is the blue dots over these pop-ups, the red dots are my big road shows, and the orange dots here are going to be the truck stops. So around you, you've got Tidworth, Devizes, Bath, Cirencester, all around your kind of neck of the woods. And what I'll do is I'll try and share these with you as well. So if people who are maybe a little bit further out, it might be quicker for them to go to Devizes, for example, or Tidworth. And we can maybe push people to that area instead. We'll give exact dates, times, who's going to be there, and for how long for. So we can just push people towards them. So if they've got questions, come and speak to us. Come and get the help they need. That's what it's all about.
Fantastic. And is there any scope for kind of physical for folk to have physical materials or posters or leaflets that
Yes.
they can distribute in there?
Yeah, I can send you stuff if you need it. Yes, that's not a problem. I've got, for me to print out a box of leaflets and send it to you, I can do that if you wish, or if you just prefer it in a digital format, I can give it to you in digital format. I can do all of that stuff. It's not
Fantastic.
a problem. For us, it's all about just spread the word, because it's surprising how many people don't know it's happening, and that's also an issue. The people who are most concerned are probably 75 plus, probably maybe 80 plus. A lot of people are just think, I've got a mobile phone. Can I get rid of my landline then? And we're like, yeah, if you want, you can. And so for a lot of people, they really don't care. However, the more rural you are, the more important it is. Because, you might have that mobile phone connectivity issue and so on and so on and so on. So, yeah, it's in the rural settings with certain generational kind of, that's where it becomes more of an issue, more of a pressing concern. Whereas if we're in the centre of Swindon, most people would probably shrug their shoulders and say, there you go, not an issue for me. But for us, it's more important that everybody knows.
Yeah.
So when the letters drop through your letterbox, they've got the opportunity to speak to us if they need to.
Fantastic. Now we have a hand up from Annie, who I'm really pleased she's on the call, because Annie does a lot of work with those with a learning disability.
Right.
So I'm sure her question, if Annie's around and would like to ask her question.
You have
be
read my
brilliant.
mind, Mark.
Yeah, I wrote it down, to be perfectly honest.
Oh, fab. No, so as Mark said, I work for the council, but my role is sort of the learning disability and autism sort of communities.
Okay.
And quite often I think there'll be a lot of anxiety around not really understanding a lot of this. So I just had a quick search for like an easy read version of what's happening, and there's little bits out there, but easy read is most commonly pictures along with very sort of simplified language. But I wondered if you might, or one of your team might, come to the Learning Disability Partnership meeting we have to talk through this and answer any questions, and maybe
Yes.
I think an easy read guide would be great. It doesn't need all that information. This only will impact you if you rely on a landline. But I thought Mencat might have a guide, but I couldn't see one. Sorry, go on. I'll give you a chance.
I was going to say, it's all right. It's all right. You carry on if you wish. It's not a problem. I was just going to say, we're working with charities now, right?
Yeah.
So because we're kind of delaying, putting out more kind of vulnerable, if you like, or those who need additional support.
Yeah.
We're delaying those. So right now, a lot of that work hasn't been done, but the conversations are happening.
Okay.
Now, and that's like the main thing. The conversations are happening, which is only a positive. We're chatting with charities, saying, right, what's the best way? How can we do this? And then from those, we try and cover as many bases as we can, but we will never cover them all.
Yeah.
However, saying that, you need me to come, and I'll talk, and I'll do the best as I can. You know, we've all got kind of lead roles and our own little teams to try and help certain customer segments as well. So, and I think it's Sodi, funny enough, who's coming to Swindon, and I think it's his role in this team, because we've got somebody covering hearing, somebody who's covering partially sighted, and I think Sodi will be covering what you want him to cover, which is ideal. So he's kind of like the perfect person to be in your neck of the woods, which is great. So we certainly can. I think if we take a conversation offline, we'll talk about what we need, and if you're working with certain charities, which is great, then maybe we can jump on that bandwagon and try and have those conversations too, and make something happen which is going to cover your needs.
No, that I think it's what will happen is people will hear this, and then the information isn't accessible, then it almost becomes bigger than it is for people. So it's really helpful to get in there first and say, this won't affect you unless these specific things and that kind of thing. But thanks so much. That's been I'm going to check one of my neighbours as well, who I know only has a landline, and I'm just going to double check he knows what.
It's funny things, like first thing comes to mind is, we've got YouTube videos and stuff, but I'm just thinking straight away, the language is probably too much. Probably too much. So we need to dial it back and as you say, make it simple. And the best thing that I always say is when you come to one of our road shows, because of the amount of people we need to speak to, we generally dial it right back. Because there might be 100 people waiting, and you're thinking, let's just make it simple. Unplug, plug it here, job done, it works. And we try to make it that simple, so people of all abilities can just pick it up. And we probably just need to make a video that's a range of videos that are that simple.
For sure.
So it's just opening our eyes up as a team really about what we need to do, and so we'll.
But happy, like you say, if you want me to have a chat with the other chappy, lady, I don't know if it's a man or a lady.
It's a chat.
Just put me in.
So
just connect me up offline. That's brilliant. Thanks so much.
Yes.
Thank you. Paul, would you like to come in with your question?
Yeah, just a quick one. I think a literature is quite good because people can then translate to whatever language they use. Sometimes they use DeepL or something, and they can use, or Google Translate, as opposed to just in English audio, and they're struggling. So just a comment, really.
Yeah, we were actually just talking about this yesterday, Paul. We've got it in English and Welsh currently, because we have to do it in Wales kind of legally, you know what I mean? And I wouldn't have stood for it if they didn't do it in Welsh, to be honest. But we talked about some of the other 5 kind of top languages which we need to, and remembering off the top of my head, there was Polish, there was I've got the worst memory in the world. This was only yesterday morning. You'd think I'd remember 5 things from yesterday, wouldn't you? But I don't. But yeah, so we were already talking about translations, but whatnot. But I've got some one pages and things like that already, which I can share. So if you guys got like the ability to just translate them bang, straight away, translate away, we are and we will have them. Maybe not yet, but we will. But in the meantime, translate away is what I would say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just a quick question from me. Yeah, I think I hope that SBC will be running comms over the media channels. They are all over it because yes, I've had emails from them as well. So yes, Joy, they are on top of it. Just a quick question from me, because we had a previous conversation. It goes back to what we in Swindon we generally call Homeline, which is the pendants that the emergency you can contact for support. You mentioned to me before in a previous conversation that some people you're not quite sure whether the system works, so you want to be careful, but some people have gone ahead and changed to a digital phone without kind of checking that.
That's right.
We have a number of people here on the call who do support people who are using Homeline,
okay.
Or manage volunteers who are doing that.
Fair enough.
Is it worth conversations, or when that comes up, what would you advise someone to do if they have a conversation about this?
Right. So yeah, so we're currently working. Let me think. Have I got it through from Swindon? Yes. So I've had the data through from Swindon. Great. Right. I've had Swindon have signed, sealed, delivered their data sharing agreement. They've sent me all of the telephone numbers. I've got everything I need. Fantastic. What I've done is I've sent back to Swindon. I said, look, these are the ones in the BT group. So BT group is BTEE plus net. And I've said, if any of these customers have moved on to digital voice already, this is who they are. Right. So it's kind of a nice wraparound piece. Now, it's what's always worth you doing. And this is how the easiest way to kind of cover the gaps is if you're dealing with somebody who is on Lifeline, is that what you called it? Is that
Homeline? Yeah.
Homeline. So if somebody's on Homeline, it's worth checking if they're with Swindon or not, if it's been supplied by Swindon or not. If it's not, it's worth them letting BT know that they have a Homeline. And that's simply done by 150 from the landline, free phone call, let us know. Because then what we'll do, we'll just put a marker on their account. Because not every local authority has signed a data sharing agreement with us, and not every private provider has. A lot of them have. A lot of them have. But not everyone. And that's the safest way we can do then is by not moving them across. We've put provisions in place to try and stop them from moving, but people will slip through the net. And some people will be so eager to move that they might not tell us the truth at the same time, and they might traverse themselves through to try and get new technology and things like that as well. So it's always best for them to let us know so we can try and protect them the best way. To explain why, so the lifelines, they are built on a copper network, copper technology. They are already going through a process of trying to move on to digital, so having them working across mobile technology and whatnot, but not all of them do. So the risk is, of course, is if they move on to digital platform and they've got an old copper product, they plug it in, they press the button, it doesn't work. Worst case scenario is someone's pressed the button, they've had a tumble and they're on the floor, press the button and it just doesn't work. That's the risk. So what we're trying to do is obviously to stop them from migrating altogether. Any customer, no matter who they are, just stop them at source. We're putting provisions in place so our sales guys will ask the questions. Have you got a telecare device? Have you got a lifeline? Anything like this? Yes or no? If they say yes, sorry, you're not buying this today. Even after that, if our engineers are going to the property, if they see a telecare device they won't install, they'll just walk away, say, sorry, you can't have this, cheerio, goodbye. That can be a frustration for people who want to move on to full fibre broadband, which is much quicker, much better than copper broadband, because they want it, but we're saying you can't have it because you're on a telecare device yet. That's where it will lead to some people trying to traverse themselves through. And just to get the better broadband technology and so on. But we're doing our best, and that's the current scenario. Every provider who is on the OpenReach network, so your Skies, your TalkTalks, Vodafones, they should all be doing the same process, stopping people who are on Telecare moving on to full fibre. They should all be doing the same thing currently. So it's kind of a bit of a stopgap at the moment, just until the Telecare companies are ready to move across. So if you are dealing with people who have Telecare, Lifelines, whatever, they come with many different names. It's worth just asking them. If it's come from Swindon, great. If it hasn't come from Swindon, ring BT on 150, it's free, and we'll be able to just mark their accounts so we know about it.
Fantastic, thank you. That's really useful to know. Just to say, Lucia, sorry if I've got the name wrong, so sorry. From comms, she's kind of reiterated that they're on top of it. They've got it in hand, and of course we're ahead of the game here a little bit. It's not being switched off tomorrow, or even the switchover is not tomorrow, is it? So it's we're ahead of the game here, planning ahead. So
on that one, Mark, sorry for jumping in, is most of our activity will start in September, right? So it's really key. Let's wave the banners, let's shout loud and proud before September, because in September it starts, right? And it'll start, and there'll be a lot of it. So we really just need to shout out loud about it now. So when it starts and the letter start dropping your letter boxes, people know about it.
Cool. That's really handy to know. Thank you. Leslie, you had your hand up. Oh, you're on mute though. Sorry.
I just put my hand down because you just answered the question. I was going to say one of the timescales.
So what we'll be looking to do is in September is move people who are low usage, who are zero usage, and they don't really use their landline. So that'll be what I call the low-hanging fruit, right? Swathes of youngsters or everyday families, you know what I mean, who just use their mobile phones. They don't use the landlines. It's just half the people haven't even got one plugged in, a phone plugged in. So they'll be the first people to move in huge numbers. But as I say, those customers will go quite quickly because they'll be gone. And then what you'll find is probably closer to Christmas is that the age brackets start to move up and so on. And then we'll start looking at people who've got the right equipment. So they've got the right hub or the right router, you know what I mean? And then it'll be the people who've got the wrong router, but we need to give them the new stuff. By the way, if you haven't got the right equipment, we give it to you. So if you haven't got a smart hub, which is what you need, smart hub 2, we will give you one free of charge. All right. So there should be no real costs kind of in getting yourself a working landline telephone. We'll work with you to try and get you that one working line. So it's all just about your circumstance as to when you start. But as I say, September, big boom, loads of radio adverts, press, and so on, and letters coming through your door.
Fantastic. So
can I just ask, is that the same time scale for all providers or just for BT?
So good question, and I'm going to remind myself I'm on record when I say this, right? So there's us. We are the only people doing an engagement program. All right. So if you're lucky enough to be a BT customer, we're the only ones who are going out there speaking to you face to face. Right. So that's BT EE Plus now. There's us, and then there's Virgin Media. We are the only two who have a data sharing agreement in place. Now, a data sharing agreement in place is basically going out there, speaking to councils, finding out who those Lifeline customers are, those Telecare customers. We're the only two companies who've got that in place, right? All of the other providers do not currently have those things in place. All right. So there's a risk to TalkTalk, to Vodafone, to Sky, to whoever. If you're one of those customers, you can ring them up. They might know what you're talking about. They might not. That's the thing, right? So we are, even though we get all of the bad press on this program, streets ahead of everybody else and probably doing the most for all the customers as well.
That's a bit concerning. I don't know how we can change that. Pressure via MPs to put pressure on the other companies.
It's not a bad idea. I think it's interesting to see what their approach is going to be. I think obviously there's been a slight delay in the cutoff date, so the cutoff date is now end of January 2027. So when all of this work is going to be complete by, so they're going to have to start working soon and quickly. But I think they're maybe just sitting back waiting to see what we do, how we get it all done, and then run off ride our coattails, if you like. But yeah, how you get those other companies to do it, good luck, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah.
Is there a voluntary procedure they should be signing up to? Is there any sort of standards?
There is a charter of commitment, which we all signed, which you can look up yourselves. Charter of commitment. You can see what we've all agreed to do. We happily signed it because we were doing, I think, about 95% of it anyway. So we were yes, great, no worries. Let's sign up to that. The big six, so you're talking us, Virgin Media, TalkTalk, Sky, Vodafone, Shell, who are the post office, right? They have a lot of those customers, and one called KCOM, who you won't know because they're only in Hull. And then there's one called Oggy, who are what we call an altnet, and they're basically building in Wales only, right? So you won't know those two. They all signed up to the Charter of Commitments. You can find it just like Charter of Commitments, telecommunications. You'll find it, and it's basically all about making sure people have batteries for backups, making sure that we look after telecare or Lifeline customers, Homeline. There's so many different names for that product alone. It's scary, and it's all about those type of things. But it's nothing about ensuring that we're out there talking to customers and so on. We do it because it's probably the right thing to do, and I think it's probably expected from BT. I think people see us as they kind of hold us as a kind of a national infrastructure kind of provider, even though we're not. But I think people see us almost like as a fourth emergency service at times. But that's why we do it. We're held in a certain level of regard, so we need to be seen to be doing these things, and that's probably why we're the only people who are running these events. We cost us a lot of money. We don't make any money from it, but there you go. We do it anyway. It gives me a job. That's all good.
Well, thank you for that. And I guess what will be important for us is that if we're working with vulnerable folk, or even we might be next door to somebody, or
all of that.
A relative, it's about having those conversations, or being just mentioning it.
Think of your Facebook groups. Every village has got a Facebook group. Every community's got one. Just think about it. Look out for the questions on there. When I send through the flyers, post one on there, ask the question. Lots of it is just myths, busting myths, and it's those little groups is where a bad news story can be a bit like a snowball and roll and roll and roll.
Yeah. It's as you say, it's about myth busting, isn't it? And
on the comment that Joyce just put in there, I think currently we're about 30% of the market, 35% of the market. So there's a large proportion out there, but I think if we're one player and about 35%, we've probably got a large portion. I think the biggest competitor would be Sky, and then the others would share the rest. But there's definitely some truth in what Joyce says. I think with the demographic who want to use just landlines, we probably have the biggest. But then Sky, Sky are quite heavy on, if you've got your TV with us, bring your telephone line across to us and we give you a really good deal. They tend to do a lot of that. Yeah. And I think people like the post office, there's another one called Zen, these smaller providers, they tend to, in more rural communities, get some really good customer bases built up.
Any other questions? We're coming to the end of our hour. But thank you so much for this. It's been really, really useful. Again, an hour, less than an hour, well spent in terms of perhaps putting the record straight, perhaps certainly kind of busting some myths, but also perhaps raising some challenges as well as to what we might all need to do next in terms of ensuring this is smooth, because it has gone smoothly. This is not the first place, is it? It has.
Yeah, it's going very well. As I say, this is the last. That's the thing. This is the last region, but we will be back probably around about the same time next year. It won't be. It might even be the last region next time again. It's interesting just because the way we drive our trucks around, we kind of go around the country and come back down here. No, it's not the last. Next time it's going to be the southeast. Is going to be the last one next time. But it's great because we'll be, it'll be summer months, so at least it'll be good weather when we're down in the region. But we've learned a lot by going around all of the others. So now we're very much a well-oiled machine and able to kind of get into places, make a big noise, and get out, and then obviously help to expand our networks as well when we're in areas. So yes, again, to anyone who's on the call, if you need a separate call, if you want me to join another group, if you want me to present to anyone, let me know, and yeah, I'll fit you in my diary somewhere.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for everyone else for coming along. I will stop the recording now so everyone can take a breath.